Let's see, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I think we're officially live. How exciting. We're live. We're live across LinkedIn. I'm using Facebook Live and YouTube Live for the first time. I don't know if it's working. We will only know if it's working if people can comment. So if you can just drop a comment if you're with us tonight and in the morning in the UK or Europe, that would be wonderful. Whilst we're waiting for that to happen, I'm pretty sure, we'll just launch into why we're here today. Very excited to be back into doing LinkedIn Lives, specifically around sharing career stories that are quite delightfully colourful and, transferring from one vocation to another. The guest that I have today, Joel Roberts, it's all about that. And it's amazing because it actually encompasses life sciences, recruiting, the two areas that I really enjoy that I love. But before launching into that, for those of you that don't know me, my name is 𝗟𝗏𝗪𝗧𝗏. I'm the founder of Protoscience. I'm actually a scientist by background, and I switched into recruiting and then found my love of career coaching when I entered the internal landscape. But it was when I was a recruiter that I met Joel Roberts. And in fact, it's a very unique, interesting, amazing story. When I first got into recruiting after having been a scientist, Joel was actually the first placement that I made into a client. And I was really excited because he's like the model candidate, amazing background, really up for doing what he needed to. But without further ado, what I'm going to do is pass it over to Joel to just introduction about yourself, how you got to where you are now, and then I'll ask you a myriad of questions. So over to you, Joel.
Thanks, Jo. Actually, I had no idea that I was your first ever placement. Like, it came across that You've been doing it for years. So yeah, well done you. So hi, good evening everyone. My name's Joel Roberts, and I'm based in London in the UK, and as Jo alluded to, I've had quite a few career changes in my 20-odd-year professional career. So I initially started off my career as a research scientist. Thank you, Jo. Great start. And it was a fantastic role. So I had the opportunity to, I was an R&D scientist, so, learning from other experienced chemists in my field, and before, being actually able to take on projects of my own, had the opportunity to work overseas. And then I moved into the field of recruitment, and did that for a few years. It's great fun, great success. And then I moved into clinical research, and it was interesting. It was a role where the role that actually brought me into clinical research was actually patient recruitment in clinical trials. There I was as a recruiter, but I, with my scientific background, and I saw this role and I thought, did such a thing exist that can combine both of my strengths and passions into one role? And I made the switch into clinical research back in 2011, and 10 years on, still in the same career. So all is steady and no future plans to change career just yet, but can never say never.
Wow, that's amazing to go from science to recruiting and then couple the two together. I don't think I've come across that myself in my whole recruitment tenure. So I think it's quite amazing. Could you give us a little bit of a spiel about what you're actually doing at Syneos Health? What is it that you're doing specifically?
Yeah, sure. So I'm an associate director within our patient engagement team. And what we're really tasked with is raising awareness about clinical trials among the public, moving barriers to access for clinical trials. Quite often, people want to participate in clinical trials and get into a trial. Quite often, for many patients, it's a last chance. It really represents hope, particularly for rare disease patients, cancer patients. Getting onto a clinical trial, can mean the difference between, having a few months extra or even survival. So we remove barriers to participation through raising awareness, communications, but then also other practical things such as removing logistical barriers, so providing transportation, as well as removing the financial barriers and taking care of incidentals and expenses that may be incurred, sort of getting to and from the research site, and then also working strategically with our clients to help reduce the burden of participation on clinical trials. So, for example, it's all about study design. How many visits do we need? Do we really need 27 visits over a 2-year period, or can we combine some of those procedures into fewer visits, or can participants undergo some of those procedures from the comfort of their own home rather than making them go to and from the research site? And so, there are many ways that many new and exciting ways that we're working in terms of reducing burden on participants, and to I guess just help improve access for all to clinical trials. So that's kind of our remit in a nutshell. It's ever evolving.
Wow, no wonder you've been doing it for a period of time now. And I think that kind of segues into the next question I wanted to ask you specifically. What do you feel have been your defining moments in your career journey so far?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think actually a lot of the defining moments were probably in my formative years, if you like. I think even before I stepped into my current career. So if we call going back to my original R&D placement back in the day, that was really formative because and very defining in the sense that I think one of the I was very much the new kid on the block, very green and learning to I guess be accountable for project delivery. And I think about the age of 23, I got the opportunity to actually manage and oversee an international project, which involved doing the lab work and then doing the whole project transfer to do the manufacturing over in China. I was the youngest chemist at the time to actually do such a thing, and never been to China in my life before, and here I was just taking this project over to a new country, to our manufacturing facilities, and just about everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. I tell you honestly, all of the manufacturing, the materials, they were late. They got delayed at customs. We were supposed to have new equipment, new machinery was being shipped in. Especially, it was a kind of, you had to have a specially designated manufacturing area just for these products. It had to be kind of closed off. Equipment was delayed, and we were there. We had a very tight timeline. So it was a baptism of fire in terms of international project management. I was there for 5 days. I was supposed to go there 5 days, in, manufacture, train, and out again. And we were sat there, I think, on day 2 in the MD's office, kind of like just discussing the timelines and when stuff going to arrive. And then the MD kind of looked over his shoulder, and on the building opposite, they were actually, preparing the room for manufacture of these products. And he sort of proudly kind of like pointed over, look, we're working on it, right now. And you could hear all this hammering and drilling. And then as he turned around and pointed, I kid you, just literally like a ton of bricks just came flying through the window of this building. And basically someone had, obviously they were removing walls, and I don't know, health and safety, don't think really was a thing back then. And someone had obviously attacked the wall from the bottom, not the wisest idea. And this wall came tumbling down and, falling a few feet below. And thankfully, I don't know how, no one was injured. It was miraculous.
Very dramatic.
It was really, and that sort of that kind of characterized the whole trip. And I just remember just going back to my hotel room and just sort of lying there with my head in my hands thinking, oh my goodness. And I was used to kind of like, being creative, having an answer to things, and it was completely out of my hands. And, long story short, I ended up staying there for 10 extra days, and we worked through the problems. But that kind of experience, I would say, was a defining moment, because I really went through the fire. went through, you know, things going disastrously wrong and just being away from family and friends, and then kind of like support and to be able to work through that and, you know, be able to put things right, you know, it that helped me to deal with pressure, because I think from that moment on, you know, I knew I could cope pretty well in high pressure situations, and, you know, not to panic. And then, you know, so whenever I found myself in a tight situation, I'll always kind of reflect back on that time there, and I'll be like, is it as bad as that? Well, no, it's not. Nothing compares. So that was quite a defining moment that I can always sort of reference back to.
That's amazing. But then yeah, go on. And then
I was just saying, yeah. I mean, also, like when I was in, when I shifted over into recruitment, and you know, you know very well the environment, and it's very much an alpha environment, very competitive. Everyone's kind of like in your face, and there's a high level of accountability. You've got a financial target like on your head, and you know the figures. Everything's written on a board in front of you. So it was, again, being able to do that and succeed in that environment, particularly where, you know, I'd have, you know, fellow newbies just starting like pretty much every week, and you know they'd appear in a desk next to you and then
vanish.
A couple of days later, vanished. They'll be like, "Oh, what happened to so and so? Oh, yeah, they weren't really like delivering the goods, so you know that's, you know, they're gone." And anyway, by the way, Joel, how are you finding your probation period? I'm like, yeah, it's great. I better get back on the phone. So, wow. So having that level of I guess personal accountability for kind of delivering success to the team, that was quite defining in terms of kind of how I go about you know, my day-to-day work and how I cope with pressure, because I think whatever you do, pressure is going to come. So it's about how you cope with it.
100%. So the resilience that you built from those examples that you've given, both from the very first role that you had done and then launching into the recruitment space, which was completely different to science. And, you know, I'm also a chemist by background, so I totally get it. And then using those as the foundation of how you cope in your current role, because it would be high pressure in that environment. So wonderful examples that you've given. So now I'm going to flip it to, what have been the greatest achievements, or what has been the greatest achievement for you? It can be professional, or it could be personal, or it could be both.
Interesting question. I mean, yeah, because I mean, I'll start with, I mean, the professional side, if I start with that first. I mean, I guess I've had a few you know, achievements, but I guess my character, the way I am, I tend not to dwell on the past. I mean, yeah, don't get me wrong, like, you know, if I achieve something, I celebrate it, but then I don't know, I just feel like my biggest achievements are yet to come. Maybe in the future I kind of like, I will, you know, look back maybe when I've retired and I'll be like, oh yes, I'm proud of that, that was excellent. But I'm very much a forward-looking person, so I kind of do something, I set out what I want to achieve. Wonderful. And I'm always like, oh, what's next? And that can be annoying for some, but you know, I'm always kind of looking forward. And I think there are things that I'm, I guess, proud of. Probably the thing I'm most proud of, I guess, it would be my personal life. I mean, you know, I have 3 wonderful children, fantastic wife. I mean, and for me, like, family life is really important. I mean, I do spend a lot of time, most of my time, working. But you know, I have 3 amazing children. I have a 10-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 1-year-old. And fantastic wife. I mean, our anniversary is just coming up, actually, 4 days time. Yeah, I better remember that. Yeah. I mean, 12 years, and for me, those are the things that are, I guess, the things that I'm proud of. You know, that my you know, our children are growing up like healthily, and you know, just watching them grow and develop, and you know, I think I would say that, you know, those are the things that I'm most proud of in my life. Yeah.
Amazing. And yeah, I totally resonate with that. I also find it really interesting when people are asked the question about achievements, unless you're in a setting where you're being interviewed, you don't really think about it. And then, you know, the point that you made about we don't really celebrate. We don't stop and celebrate the milestones. It doesn't have to be this, you know, grandiose gestures in life to be a great achievement. It could be the smallest thing. You know, from going from 0Ks to 5Ks running, if you've never done it before. So I think we need to have a chat about your achievements so far, so you can sort of remember and recall and draw on that, and take that with you into the future. Because as humans, yes, we do continue to want growth, you know, within our personal life and our professional life. So it's normal to feel like, yep, let's just think forward. What's next? We all do that, but I'm here to remind you. So, now
reflection's good. I'm learning the skill.
Yes.
Learning the art is powerful.
So now if you reflect holistically on your life, you know, your family, your wife, the family unit itself is quite important to you. So what's happened in your life that has shaped you so far? You've given some examples, but what else?
Yeah. So I think a number of things. I mean, I would say, like, firstly, like everyone has to have something like an anchor that kind of keeps them, I guess, real and who they are. And so kind of for me personally, it's my faith. So that's something sort of very personal to me as a Christian. When I'm in those times where everything is kind of chaotic around me, you know, chaos could be in the workplace, it could be wherever it is. That's a kind of constant that kind of keeps me anchored and calm when kind of like there's a huge storm around me. And that's really, you know, I found it's been a huge benefit to me, both professionally and personally. So I tend to be very even tempered and even mannered.
Yes.
You know, and that's helpful to kind of have a cool head when kind of like those around you are kind of maybe looking for someone with a cool head, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely.
And I think another thing that's another event I think that sort of shaped my, I guess, my viewpoint in life. If I go back to China again, you know, it was a very different culture, hugely different. And around that time, it was in Tianjin. There were very few black people around, very few white people, you know, mainly Chinese. And so here I was in this country, and you know, the first trip project is going wrong, everything is going wrong. So like, let's seek solace in kind of like the social aspect. And people were just staring at me. People kind of cycling by and really kind of like, you know, crossing over the road and wanted to shake my hand and all kinds of stuff. Yeah. At first, my approach to that, I actually felt extremely uncomfortable. Okay, so I felt, oh, they're kind of, you know, why is everyone kind of staring at me? And you know, it felt horrible. But actually, I then realized that people are staring and approaching me because I'm different. And actually, when I was, you know, got through, you know, going there on numerous occasions, people had only ever seen black people on TV, you know, and you know, basketball is huge over there, and for many people in China, that was all they'd seen. So I guess what I took from that is I became sort of very comfortable in my own skin. I became very comfortable being different. So then going into industries, for example, where, you know, maybe I may have been the only black employee, for example, it didn't really faze me at all. And you know, I rather than looking at you know me being different or people being different from me, I just see everyone as people rather than for their what their outward appearance may be. And so that was a huge, I guess, like learning moment, and that's kind of stuck with me, I think, throughout my life.
Yes, definitely is something that would stick with you. And just knowing that, just to summarize, you know, the faith that you have in yourself, so trusting yourself, and also the comment that you made about being comfortable with who you are. comfortable in your own skin, and people will feel that and feel comfortable around you. I think that's what you're alluding to when it comes to that specific example. And I think it's key to be comfortable in your own skin and not to have that insecurity about who you are and your background. Wow, amazing.
Yeah, maybe maybe it comes with age as well, because, you know, I think when you're younger and you're still discovering yourself, you know, and then kind of I think you get to a point where you kind of know the lay of the land. And
yeah, and anyone that hasn't come across certain cultures, you know, they're naturally curious. They want to know, they want to explore, they want to understand. I think that's the basis of it.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's switch it to just the idea around what inspired you to go from scientist to recruitment and then patient recruitment. Yeah, I know you had given us your journey, the synopsis of how you got there, but just the reasons behind it, the inspiration to your moves.
Yeah, sure. I mean, my lab job, R&D chemist role, I really enjoyed it. It was fantastic, amazing people. I loved the job. However, unfortunately, like, it just really wasn't well paid. I mean, in terms of being able to get a house and all of the kind of aspirational things outside of the career, it just was never going to get there. Absolutely not. And I would see marketing people and salespeople get promotions and compensated for their efforts, and there's me in the lab actually making these formulations and actually doing the work to make themselves possible. I'm thinking, hang on a second here, this isn't very meritocratic. So let me find something that, yes, it will help me to meet my financial aspirations, but at the same time where my effort and the successes that I have are proportional to, you know, my earnings. And I remember that, recruitment. I remember, Jo, that was she really helped me out there. I was really like kind of in need of a job, and look, I'm really happy. Let me look into this. And so that was really kind of like the motivating factor for me to get into recruitment. And it was interesting, like a lot of recruiters, like Rec-to-Recs, they were telling me, oh, you'll never, you're not going to get into any of those agencies. I specifically wanted to get into headhunting within healthcare. That was kind of like what I wanted to do. I didn't just want to be a cold caller and just everything else. I wanted to do something that was required a bit more, I don't know, it was a bit more cerebral. Apologies for any volume recruiters out there. No disrespect. But, you know, I like doing the research and everything else. It's my scientific head. And I was told no by a number of people, and I guess I just persisted, and thankfully I didn't give up, and I got a fantastic role at a boutique agency, and that was really kind of like the drive getting in there, and it was fantastic because, you know, I performed well. I was a top biller, and after a year I became the head of their pharmacy recruitment department. So I had 7 amazing recruiters reporting into me. So, you know, that was a really fun time, really great camaraderie there. But then, you know, it came to a point where I guess it's just a sign. I felt that I wasn't using the scientific aspect. Yes, I was using the business part, but my scientific background, I kind of felt, is there a way that I can kind of get back to that somehow? And it was really just on the off chance. I don't know, I happened to see this advert. It may have been in the paper or online, where I saw this patient recruitment role come up within a hospital, and it meant a drop in my salary. You know, that was what it took, but it combined, I guess, my passions and my strengths really well, and plus it was something that was meaningful. I think I've always tried to do something that's meaningful. So you know, whether it's recruitment, you know, you're helping people find meaningful work, and, you know, matching their aspirations with the perfect role to help them meet those aspirations. And then in clinical research, helping to bring new medicines to sick patients. I mean, to help improve their quality of lives. I mean, it's something I'm incredibly passionate about, and feel really fortunate to work within this industry. So I mean that's kind of the rationale, you know, through the different career changes. So it wasn't completely random. It was,
no, not at all. In fact, I could spend at least an hour just breaking down all the things that you've just mentioned, but I'll just summarize. The way I see it is you have such self-awareness about your skills and your traits, and you wanted to do something more with them. And having transitioned from a scientist, you know, the driver for you was the monetary side. You wanted to add impact, add value, but you wanted to be compensated for that. And then I totally get missing the science, which is why I guess I switched to helping people in STEM and life sciences with their career, because I feel it's so important to keep them in there, to keep them in those areas, in those vocations. It's needed. And so to transition to something that was then offering a lower salary, but you established this is it, and here you are continuing on this journey. So it's very exciting. Yeah, so it comes back to, you did your own self-evaluation of your own skill set, and you recruited yourself into a role that's made for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really, I'll tell you, as being a recruiter, I mean, you get some really useful skills, I find, on the way. The whole kind of self-evaluation and everything else. I mean, it's it was definitely I think has worked to my advantage, you know.
Absolutely. Now, we've got a couple more questions because I know you have to dash off into your day. The one I wanted to know more about is, what are the wonderful things that you'll be working on for the rest of the year, if you're able to share?
Yeah, sure. So there are a couple of initiatives. So firstly, something I mentioned earlier around, you know, being able, you know, enabling patients to you know, maybe participate in research from their homes. You know, with the advent of COVID-19, you know, it's caused tremendous disruption to, you know, many industries, including clinical trials. So what we've seen is a huge push towards technology-driven solutions. So the use of telehealth, home nursing, and technologies, wearable technologies to capture data remotely. So, you know, heart rates and other kind of like key data points. And so what we call it decentralization of clinical trials. So basically bringing the trial to the patient. And so that's a huge push. We've recently established a new decentralized clinical trials business unit. So we're kind of working on, you know, pulling all of those pieces together, and you know, a few exciting launches that we've already had, and some more exciting times to come. So that's really, you know, sort of occupying a lot of our thoughts. But then also another stream we're working on is to support diversity in clinical trials. So the FDA, they released some guidelines around helping industry ensure that the clinical trial patient populations are reflective of the real world populations that are impacted by a given disease. So those are demographic factors, but also non-demographic factors. So patients with, you know, comorbidity, so other diseases that they're living with, but may be unnecessarily excluded from participating in a clinical trial. So, you know, if someone has HIV, is that necessarily a valid reason for exclusion from a clinical trial in all instances? Well, it's not. So, and people who are maybe at the extreme spectrum of their BMI. So, you know, is usually a blanket disqualification for people with a BMI over a certain amount, but is that always clinically necessary? And so just ensuring that our clinical trial populations are reflective of the real world populations. And, you know, in particular, you know, a huge focus on you know, is on the US at the moment. You know, African Americans and Latinos, they're traditionally underrepresented across many clinical trials. And so, you know, looking at, you know, what the barriers to participation are, I mean, ensuring that clinical trials are available and accessible to all patients, and that there's a myriad of touch points there for many of us in the industry, and so that's a huge focus, I think, for the industry in 2021 and moving forward. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Something new I learned today: diversity in clinical trials and the patients that are selected for them. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but also great that it's moving in that direction. Amazing. Now, the last question I was going to ask you was any comments that you want to leave for the viewers who are watching now or also on the replay about their career?
Yeah.
What insights, tips would you like to leave them with?
Sure.
Having had a colorful career yourself.
I would encourage your viewers to find that combination of something they enjoy and that they're great at, because when you get that combination, that's really going to give you the fuel to kind of like push through those difficult times. You know, like if you can find that combination, whatever it is, go for it. And don't be afraid to go for it, because if you can find that magic spot, then you will naturally soar. You're not going to be kind of like, swimming against the stream. So that would be, I guess, my key piece of encouragement for your viewers here today. Go for it. Pursue your dreams.
Excellent advice. I love that. And I totally agree with you 100% that you should actually focus on the thing that's going to fulfill you, the thing that you choose as your vocation, what you do every day. It's so important that you do enjoy it, because if you don't, then you're going to have an unhappy life. And that's why I love coaching, helping people get to that career destination that will lead to their happiness and fulfillment. Thank you so much for joining us today, Joel. It's been
thank you, Jo.
An amazing chat.
Pleasure.
And so for anyone out there, we'll have another LinkedIn Live. This time we're going to Spain and followed by Switzerland. So once again, sharing career stories to help inspire you with yours and, get some insights and some tips about how you could lead to that fulfilling career yourself. So until next time, take care and stay safe. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.